Good morning from Astoria.
Heyo.
This is Rachel.
Hey, it's Ned.
And we are sitting here at our second, can we call it our second
It
author
is our
interview?
second, but you guys are going to hear it first
It'll
because
be the
If
first
Found
one you
Please Call
hear.
is awkwardly pushed to third.
Yeah, so some interesting shuffling has happened with plays.
Things have
New York
happened.
theater, you guys.
Yeah.
It moves around, it changes, it's never the plan you thought it was going to be. But here at the table, we've done a few plays. We just, I have to mention it. We did a recording yesterday of what I think
Will be
our
next
listeners will hear as our second
February,
play.
yeah.
In February, we did a live taping, our first ever live recording of a play called Troop 54 by Justin Colombo. And we did it at the Drama Bookshop, our new sponsors. And for
Yeah,
that night,
for that
at least.
play, definitely.
And Dunkin' Donuts, our other new sponsors, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. It was so fun and so funny, and the actors were amazing. It was great.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
the only
hilarious.
one psyched about this, apparently.
Can't
I
wait
don't
to
know
show
what
you
the hell
guys. No,
everyone's
I'm
problem
like
is.
keeping myself down because like that's not the play we're here to talk about.
No, it's not. I'm just saying that's a thing. If this podcast is talking about things that are happening in theater, that is a thing that happened in theater yesterday.
Absolutely. And
we
so,
are what's happening.
That lovely sneak peek of If Found Please Call that you all heard on our first episode back in November. It's now January. Sorry.
Yeah. Happy New Year. Happy 2017.
Happy 2017. You will get that play. We promise. It just might not happen till March.
Yeah, we're going to get Shannon's play in
It'll happen.
super soon.
It's
and we may
coming.
have our interview up kind of sooner than that. We'll see.
Potentially. We interviewed Shannon. It's great. There are some things that are now dated because we interviewed her in November.
Yeah. It was the theater topics we discussed with Shannon were very, very timely.
Yep.
For November.
So we may bring Shannon back and do just a little bit of an update.
God,
but
things are getting so complicated in the new
yeah.
year. Aren't you finding that? I am. Anyway, this is At the Table.
You know who's sitting in the room with us besides Marcus? Hey, Marcus.
Hey, Marcus.
Oh, he waved. He still won't talk. We'll get him someday.
But it's for radio.
To my left is Dustin Sullivan.
Hey.
Oh, hello there.
Hey!
Who is our third playwright, but your first playwright here at
Yeah.
the Table podcast.
Shuffles.
Dustin's play Parched is our first recorded
It's up.
and up. Oh, it's already up. People
It's
are already
up.
listening
People
to
are
it.
listening, guys. As we record this, it has been about 12 hours since it was on the downloads store, and on our first 12 hours, we've done exceptionally well. So thank you, listeners.
Please don't, if you're listening to this, you can press pause right now and you should like it, you should subscribe, you should do the third thing. What's the third
Rate,
thing?
review on the iTunes store or Stitcher or wherever you are listening right now, and tell your friends.
You should review it if you're on iTunes, and the rest of you should subscribe. Just subscribe, send it to your
Subscribe,
mom,
tell
send
your
it to your
friends.
theater professors.
Tell all your friends.
Tell everyone.
Everyone.
Go on Open Table.
Go
Yes.
on.
Yes. Open Table, Yelp us.
Yelp.
See, there's a reason he's a writer. He's thinking outside of the box here. We should go on Yelp. Absolutely. You can leave comments on Uber now. Maybe you could
Yes.
like go on
Oh,
Uber.
yeah. Like if maybe one of us isn't your Uber ride, but you could say like, hey, while you're in this Uber card, the next time you take a ride,
Yeah.
listen to this podcast. It's really useful. Yeah.
Craigslist. What are other
Take
places?
an ad on Craigslist. What's
Our
the
marketing-
One?
our mar-
Fiverr.
I don't even know what
Fiverr's
Fiverr
the
is.
one where you offer your services to things. So I'll
What
just say
on
like
earth
you
does
pay
that
us $5 and you can listen to this podcast that's free.
That is the most new market millennial bullshit I've ever heard.
Absolutely. No, I'm on there for marketing.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
are.
Pay me money. I'll do social media management for you.
This is a lot
Full
of
sell.
shilling before we start talking to Dustin. Hi, Dustin. Good morning. Welcome to Astoria.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very excited.
I
to
do
have you
apologize after having been at the reading of the next play that is going to be shown that my play did not have as many 12-year-olds swearing.
here. Yes.
It feels like a missed
Spoiler.
opportunity now.
Yeah. mhm.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. The third play you're going to hear, Troop 54, has just an incredible amount of adolescent swearing. Just
Yeah.
an
Which I
extraordinary
can't rate
amount.
more highly, to be clear.
No, it really it worked. It worked so hard.
I'm
Your
not
play
gonna
is
lie,
also
though.
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm
despite
kind of
that.
a big fan of Parched. I've listened to it a bunch, and we only released it 12 hours ago.
Yeah, it's pretty wonderful. Can you talk to us about Parched a little bit? How is this a recent play for you? Is this
Well, let's see. So I wrote Parched. Parched was my third play that I'd written, and I finished it maybe about 5 or 6 years ago now. Since then, I've written one other full-length play, and then I've been doing more work on books to musicals and lyrics for musicals, and that's been kind of the more recent development. So this is actually a while back, but yeah, it's also the kind of a standalone play as far as all the other things I've written have more of a contemporary feel to it, and this has more of a simpler feel. So there's sort of like an appreciation on my part for creating something that's less me than usual.
We tagged it as Americana.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it kind of nebulously exists in the Midwest or South or Canada. It's somewhere in there, right?
Yeah.
It's somewhere less urban.
It's got fields.
Many fields.
There are very important narrative fields. Where did this come from then? Because you knowing a bit more of your work, that this is very Americana and this is there's magical realism. I mean, where did all of this come from for you?
It's so funny. Sometimes things just pop in your brain. It really does come down to it. You don't sit down to come up with an idea. You don't try to craft something. It just like you wake up one morning and you're like, what if this thing happened?
What was that for you? Was it the land? The land's not soaking up
Yeah,
water? Or what was the impetus?
It was that. It was a patch of land that for some reason, despite thunderstorms, it stays perpetually dry. And I didn't know really until I finished it, like what all of it meant to me personally. It is a play about loss. It's a play, specifically it's a play about the loss of this young boy's father. That is not a personal experience that I have. But I did have a recent experience at that time of losing a relationship, which was super crushing and super my fault. And there was a lot of pent up feeling about, what had I done? What was my responsibility in it? What was going to be the effect of that going forward for me? Who was affected by it outside of myself? It was only once I kind of typed the end and then looked at it and said, oh, like, that's absolutely the process that I was going through when I wrote this. And it made me happy that I was able to write a play that was about that for me without writing a play about that.
Absolutely.
That it became a lost play kind of more generally, but
Yes.
not about like, I lost this girl and then the rain stopped working.
Yeah,
Cool.
because relationships are fascinating and they're the linchpin of any good show, really. But I'd already done that to some degree, both in a dramatic way and then later in a comic way, and that's great. But like, you do need to have plays that focus on other things. You don't, especially when you're going at it from an immediate heartbreak. That can be such a fertile place for saccharine terribleness.
That's really interesting because especially when I'm looking at your play that we just read, and knowing that there's this relationship between Daniel and Cassie that is remarkably nebulous in its relationship status. What brought you to that part of the tale?
Well, because it's interesting to observe the disconnect in a relationship that's clicking on all levels except for the truth being spoken out loud. It seems so clear throughout the play that you have these two people who care so deeply for each other, and he's the only one who's not able. Well, I guess in some ways they're both not able to express it. She's prepared to express it if he would do the same.
Right.
But I also didn't want to create something where it's, the last thing I think of Cassie as is like a doting wannabe girlfriend. Like she's there because she thinks this guy is awesome and because they have a deep, abiding friendship. But there is this other part for her which she would like to express and she would like to deal with, but she knows that he's got his own thing and he's unable to come to grips with what all of it means to him. And but yeah, to have this immensely strong female character who's got her own life, she's got her own things, but there's also this boy that she loves, and he's got this person in his life that there's a whole lot of roadblocks in the way of him acknowledging what might be there. And the play, in fact, ends with him still not fully acknowledging it, but expressing a desire to know. I
think that's a thing that struck me about the show upon reading it, is that it's decidedly not a love story. When I read it and when I first heard it, even at the end, a spoiler for those of you who haven't, I guess stop and fast forward.
Please don't listen to this interview if you haven't listened to the play.
They kiss in the last moment, and it almost still feels like another tactic. He's just trying to make the rain soak in.
It's a familial love
and
story.
so it's not incredibly clear, even at the end, if this doesn't feel like two people who finally acknowledge their feelings.
Yeah, I didn't
at
want
the
it to
end.
be like
They
a
are
Ross and
still-
Rachel, like, oh, thank God they finally
Right,
made
No,
it happen.
it
It's like,
truly
oh.
feels at the last minute like he's just, maybe that's the thing that works. And she is one of my favorite lines in the show, which is, love never made the grass grow. I think you really hit at the heart of it, that all of these wonderful things are trying to bloom and grow around him, and he has to find his way through that first.
Yes.
That's what this show struck me as, and I think that's really fascinating that you found a really resonant way to discuss that in the context of a very different relationship or a very different loss.
Absolutely.
Well, and then for me, I guess thinking about it like that, the other side of it was introducing the religious element, which is another thing that I am relatively far removed from on a personal standpoint. I find religion to be a fascinating thing and an occasionally beautiful thing, but it's not something that I personally ascribe to. And
That's why we brought you here today, to tell you the good
it's
news.
time.
Have you heard the word? But bird is the word. That's
Bird.
Yeah, I was going to say,
It's my favorite word.
Church of Beatles is happening over in Ned's corner.
So I was also excited to introduce this other character of the pastor who...
Which was played by who brilliantly?
just this crazy talented actor.
A hack. We found a
How
hack
could-
wandering
How
the
could
streets
we get a
of
hold of
Astoria.
this crazy talented actor?
I actually think this is a good thing to talk about. So
Yeah.
can we talk a little bit about this? Is as are all of the plays so far, an unproduced piece for you, and casting has been discussed in a couple of different ways. And we lost an actor right beforehand, and Dustin knows the part pretty well.
He may or
So-
may not have written it.
But you didn't write that part for you, right?
No,
Let's talk-
I wrote the play a handful of years ago. So I originally wrote it thinking like, oh, I'm going to play Daniel, and this is going to be awesome. And then all of a sudden, in spite of doing Heathers the musical a couple years ago, and playing a high schooler at 34,
Are you crying? Right now?
it hurts so bad. You reach a point where you go like, well, this isn't. Even if I could partially look like this part, I don't have that emotional. I'm not at that point in my life anymore. I'm too far removed. So that has gone to the wayside. But
You're much too wise at this point.
far too wise. I knew too much about too many things. But it was a lovely little experience for me to do the reading, because I had never aspired to do the pastor. But it felt very good. I don't know if it's something that, like, going forward, I would try to cast myself in again. But it was because I have so many questions about where he's coming from and how decent he is as a human being, while also being so frustrating to the people around him at times. It was really fun to play around with.
Are we talking the pastor?
The pastor, yeah.
Not you.
Me as a person?
Sure.
Very frustrating to be around.
That's interesting. Sorry, that kind of brings us to a side topic. But what is your background then? Because you're talking about being in Heathers, and you're talking about casting yourself as Daniel. Are you an actor? Are you a playwright? Where do you start?
You can only be one.
Yes, this is the thing about theater: is you cannot be multi-talented.
No.
No,
That's a lie. We're making jokes for
These
people
are all
listening at
jokes
home.
for those
you
of
should
you-
do more than one thing.
I'm only talented at one thing, and that's being obnoxious. But like,
That's
It's
not
important
true.
to excel.
I'm really good at making coffee.
You're
that's
very
true.
good at making
Yeah,
coffee.
I make damn good coffee.
Who are
Side
you?
note,
Where are you
I
from?
made the coffee today.
What do you do? Marcus made the coffee today. That's true.
Facts are facts. I started as a performer. I have an older brother who did all the middle and high school shows, and I thought, you the best, and I want to be like that. So I followed his footsteps, went to college for acting, which I trained as, not musical theater, because my dreams got crushed. But I bounced back.
That's what this play is about.
Yes, in many ways, the loss of my musical theater degree. Then I proceeded to just do acting for many years. I did a couple national tours. I'm a member of the Redo Shakespeare Company. I love performing. And then somewhere along the way, similarly, I had this little nugget of an idea for a show. I spent several years avoiding it at all costs because I thought, well, I've got no experience writing and I have no right to write. And I lived by that rule for far too long because who cares? And finally realized who cares, wrote it, And that was kind of the
that
start
this
of it.
play?
No, that was a play called Touch Me There. This is sort of a side thing too, but one of the things that I've been most grateful for as an adult human being is you never know the little moments that are gonna shove you in a totally new direction, and a lot of those little moments come from your friends. Who knows if I would have ever written another play if one of my friends hadn't read that and been like, this is really good, there's really something here. I'm now a lyricist at BMI, and I'm working on my second full-length musical, and it's like one of the biggest parts of my life. And the reason I even applied to BMI was because I shared a lyric with a friend who's an accomplished composer, and thinking like maybe she'll write back and be like, yeah, good try, pal. And she wrote back like a 3-page email that said like, this is what I think about it, here's what I think works, here's what I think doesn't, like these are some really interesting thoughts here. And I felt so validated, and it's such a fascinating thing to see what a simple validation can do for you. So life lesson, everybody, be kind to your friends, and if you see something that is worth pursuing, point it out to them, because they may not know it yet. And we need every little push we can get. It would be nice if everything came from within, but that's not always how it works.
It's that reminds me a lot about a Sondheim quote that I think we've mentioned. I'm not sure if we've mentioned yet. Well, you certainly won't have heard it.
You won't have heard it, listeners.
But that is, I think, kind of like and this is going to be a terrible paraphrase, but there's a Sondheim story when he was asked what he says when he sees a show that he thinks is terrible, and he says, "Congratulations, I loved it," something along those lines. And basically, the take home that he is expressing is that it's not your job to shut down anybody else. You're not a money person, and you're not a ticket buyer. These are friends, these are collaborators, and I think it's a beautiful sentiment, because first of all, I guess that is you're right when you're Sondheim, but you also get to be a kingmaker and an arbiter of taste, and you get to be a person who sets tone when you are Sondheim. But that's something that I feel like only helps when you are collaborating, when you're working with friends. Your friends, when they're asking for criticism, like when they're a critique rather, like that's a great thing. But nobody benefits from you shutting down the work of others. Almost ever. I can't think of one. And I think that this is something that I've seen in your work a lot, is this sort of like willingness to work with collaborators and be enthusiastic about their work and enthusiastic about what they bring to the table, which I find really fascinating.
Well,
and wonderful.
I mean, that's been a very cool part about transitioning, or at least doubling up on being an actor and being a writer, is I've more recently been introduced to this whole new world of other writers, composers, lyricists, book writers, whatever, that are so immensely talented. It's terrifying. It's terrifying in such an exciting, invigorating way. But it gives you pause, because you're like, these people have gifts. Like, I guess I better step it up.
Is there something you've seen recently that has made you super happy? At any level, a reading, a script of a friend that you've read?
Boy, I mean, there are a couple of things to point to. Honestly, not to make it sound like it's all plugs. This reading yesterday was fascinating of the play that you'll hear. Yeah, that you'll hear shortly. Because that's so far removed from anything I'll ever write. It's just totally different. It's full on comic value. It's a constant barrage of hits, and every hit is pretty golden.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I can craft a good joke, but my plays aren't built on the premise of just constant hilarity. It's not a skill set that I possess. So getting to watch somebody who is able to really roll from one into the next for a period of an hour and a half it's really just a shockingly amazing thing to me that somebody's able to make that happen, and still be interested, and have it not just be like, oh, there's another joke. Oh, there's another joke. Like, it really is a plot that is unfolding through this comedy. I'm very jealous. I like what I write, and I wouldn't want to change that, but I wish I could add that to my skill set, because holy crap, like that's a whole different part of the brain just lighting up.
Continuing, BMI?
BMI?
Actually, yeah, let's poorly segue into that. So you got back from tour, you'd been writing some of these plays, you started writing lyrics, showed them to a friend?
Lyrics? Yeah.
Well, the poems.
Were they
the
poems that became songs? Or did you start writing songs?
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I wrote lyrics, but definitely without music at the time because I have no musical abilities.
Weren't you an original cast member of Heathers the musical?
I sing like a damn angel.
Yeah.
But no, I can't play instruments to save my life, nor can I.
That was assertive.
That was fantastic.
And fantastically false. But
Unbelievable.
yeah, I can't play instruments, and I can like read sheet music, but I'm not going to be like, here's a beautiful melody for you. So especially at the beginning, one of my biggest paths with lyrics has been figuring out form, because I definitely initially was writing things that just kind of were scattered and had rhymes, but who knows when they were going to happen. And so I wrote a couple lyrics/poems, we'll call them, and then shared them with friends. And then this friend said, like, have you ever heard of BMI? I was like, I have not.
We should give a shout out. This was Julia
Meinwald.
Julia Meinwald, the incredible composer, works
Yeah.
with Gordon Leary.
Yeah.
Gordon Leary.
Yeah,
They wrote
fantastic team.
Pregnancy Pact, the musical. They've been working on Pied, which has a new name now, I believe. But
Yes, it does.
it's the Anita Bryant musical. They're incredible. They're
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful writing team.
Yeah, and she was very good to me and suggested this thing. So I applied to BMI. I was very fortunate to be accepted the first year that I applied to it, although I had to defer for a year because then I went on a tour of Little House on the Prairie, the musical.
Hey,
And it was after that I wrote
Starring?
Parched.
starring Dustin Sullivan.
Well, yeah.
Yes, as a guy with soot. Starring Melissa Gilbert.
She played, right? Isn't this
Back as Ma. And
full circle?
and a full spectrum of other fantastic actors, wonderful people. And I got back from that, wrote Parched after that, and also...
So would you say that your experience on Little House on the Prairie put you in that Americana mood?
It put me in that ending of relationship mood,
Oh!
which then led
Great.
to Parched, which
Great.
had all the things.
That got real.
Slice of life.
Yeah.
Slice of life. Oh, how we can laugh now. And laugh. And laugh.
And cry.
And yes, that too. So started BMI, met just an extraordinary group of other lyricists and composers. I was just a lyricist in that group. There was maybe 30 some odd of us in my year. I'm still a part of it, and I'm in the advanced workshop now. And one of the folks I met there was Jonathan Reed Gelt.
Oh, I love his stuff. Are you working with Jonathan Reed Gelt?
I am working with Jonathan Reed Gelt.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's very cool. It's the first time I've worked with somebody who, like, most of the time, if you mention it to people in musical theater, like, wait, Jonathan Reed Gelt?
I love his music.
He has such a following.
It's wild.
Do you have any recordings that we can maybe play a snippet of on this podcast?
Oh my God. I want to say yes, with the caveat that sometimes John likes to keep things a little close to the vest.
Great.
We've been working on this show.
Let's do like a quick question. Hey, listeners, if there's a song on here, really excited to share it with you.
You're the best, Mr. Holmes. I confess, Mr. Holmes. It was me.
He's the one you
There's no
want.
doubt, Mr.
It's
Holmes. Suss it out, Mr. Holmes.
obvious.
It's so painfully
It's obvious. It's
You're the best, Mr.
so
Holmes. I confess, Mr. Holmes. It was me. Me. There's no doubt, Mr. Holmes. Suss it out, Mr. Holmes. It's so painfully
Yeah. What is this beautiful piece?
Can you talk about Us in Shadow?
You betcha. Dust and Shadow is an adaptation of a novel written by Lindsay Fay, who is an author who is just kicking ass and taking names everywhere she goes.
She also wrote Jane Steele. She's written many things, but
Yeah.
Jane Steele, this one that's out, that's a retail kind of
It's been showing up
reinterpretation
in all
of
these
Jane
best
Eyre.
of lists this year.
It's crazy good. Yeah.
She's fantastic and so talented and the loveliest woman. And she gave us the rights to adapt this book, which is about Sherlock Holmes as he chases down Jack the Ripper. And it is it's a darker musical, which is very awesome. And we have found occasionally kind of hard to get traction with because,
How many people in your cast?
well, it's a big cast. It started at, oh God, what did it start at? It started like 24, and we've narrowed it down to about 17, 18 now. That's been a big part of it. And also, you know, when you look to Broadway, there are not a lot of shows that go to a tougher place. I think it's a necessary art. I think it's something that's fascinating, and we certainly, it's not dark for dark's sake. It's got lots of good comedy in it. The book is wonderfully written by Casey Marino, another performer writer. But you are dealing with Jack the Ripper, and I think there's a musical that exists somewhere called like Ripper with like an exclamation point. And
Of course it is.
And it's like a
Is it
full blown.
farce, or is it
I
like
think
really,
so. I don't know too much about
like
it. but-
Silence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
This lives closer to like a Sweeney Todd than a Jekyll and Hyde,
Sweeney is
for
actually
example.
probably the closest approximation
Yeah.
in tone. So when he sings, it's supposed to be upsetting. It's creepy. It's which I found is not the easiest tone to hit when you're writing musical theater, because musical theater does not lend itself as it's harder to wrestle a dramatic idea musically. I have found without it being overwrought. Finding that line can be tough, and this really does actually take Sherlock on a journey, which I think a lot of other things don't. It's just like, how is he going to solve it? Like, that's always kind of like, how will he do it? What crazy sequence of events will he? But this is more about like what happens when Sherlock gets broken a little bit. So we take him on a full journey from start to finish, and Watson is there every step of the way at his side. I'm really excited about it. It's been a long path. Theater, you guys, for anyone looking into getting into it as a business, be prepared for the long haul.
It's a marathon.
I don't mean that in a sad way. It has sad moments and it has tough moments.
Unless you're like a billionaire listening, in which case
And which point
Just call us.
All of us.
our
Call us.
podcast and also our careers.
yeah, call
Not
us.
just
If you
the
are a
podcast.
billionaire or Wayne Duvall, you can just call us at any time.
Yep.
But it's true. I mean, and this is applicable both for musicals and for straight drama. Is people will tell you the road from like conception to having people sit down in nice plush seats watching it can be years, and this one has been years. Apparently, not as many years as the average, which is
Some things
crazy.
take a long time. You see things go pretty quick.
Sometimes, yeah.
What's on something on Broadway right now has only really been in development for like a couple of years. I think Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think it took. That was pretty quick turnaround.
I was going to say when Rachel was asking things that have moved me recently, that was going to be the other example. I'm not.
I would love to talk about. We did a little bit more with when Shannon was here. I wanted to continue talking about your project, but we talked a little bit about like what's going on in theater. And have you guys gotten to see
I
Dear
saw
Evan
it.
Hansen yet?
I
Have
saw
you gotten
it.
to see it, Marcus?
See what?
Dear Evan Hansen?
No, not.
I saw it in Washington, and then I saw it here in New York on the Broads.
We saw second stage, so we've
covered all
between
the
us we've
bases.
seen
Between us,
all
we've
of
seen
the
all of the
productions,
productions.
which makes this a little fangirl creepier than I expected. But
I'm
what
not.
Ben Platt is doing is pretty.
Ben Platt's work
it can't be overstated.
I don't really have words except for I can't imagine right now in my head what competes with that.
Neither
from
can I.
The Tony season.
Well, yeah.
Well-
we could have a whole separate
Yeah,
discussion
exactly.
about that, because like nothing competes with it because it's totally its own role and
right.
awards.
blah, blah,
But
blah.
Justin feels
as far as
strongly
like
about this.
but as far as like could someone come in and like deliver that performance better? Kind of feels like no.
No.
Like he's doing something really really magical. So I would have mentioned that, but I also would mention I don't know Pacing and Paul particularly well. Their ascendance feels very validated by this piece. The material that they wrote for this is so. Oh, it's just so good. It's lovely. As a lyricist, I look up to that piece of work as something that I want to aspire to, something that I want to create.
I've seen so much cool things in the last few years. I'm so excited about theater right now. Natasha Pierre is just stunning.
So excited.
I haven't gotten to see as much this season as I would have liked, but the last time I remember having like that kind of an experience was 2008 Passing Strange.
Passing
Like,
Strange.
And that's like my cross to bear as I live
Stu,
for that.
do you want to come on our show?
Stu,
We would love to talk to you.
Please come on our show.
We would do a musical.
We would. Stu, would you like
We
to
would do-
premiere something on At the Table? Call
If you
us.
would, we would do it in any heartbeat. You can't imagine the hour we just spent before we started recording talking about Passing Strange, sir. It really was. It's an hour. It was quite a long discussion. So
Yep.
call us.
Anyway.
Or if you're Wayne Duvall, just call us. We miss you.
Wayne Duvall. Better call Wayne.
Better call Wayne.
Whoa.
So is there anything else that you're working on that you'd like to talk about a little bit, theatrical or otherwise?
Theatrical or otherwise. I'm working on a second musical, which is a total flip of Sherlock Holmes and Jack. It's kind of like a golden age throwback, is I guess what I'm calling it so far. Although it's going to have a little bit of Trump in it now, because it has to, because that's theater now. So I'm working on that.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
What does that mean? That's so
Yeah.
interesting. That's theater now.
That's theater now.
I think
It has to be a safe space.
Sure. That's right. Theater is a safe space. Donald
Marcus
Trump taught us that.
Singer.
Yeah, Marcus just dropped 2 imaginary mics,
Oh,
which is
bam.
because he would never drop a real
He would never
one.
drop a real mic since he's our audio
Let's
guy.
not be crazy.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? I'm curious.
Well,
Happy 2017.
Well, let's see. What does it mean to me? I think there's going to be a lot of satire about stuff that's happening now.
54 Below tonight. There's Trump the musical.
Is there really?
The Trumpsicle?
Trumpsicle.
Or it will have happened a month ago.
It will, yeah, by the time you hear it, it will have happened a couple weeks ago. But as we record this, it's
like
coming right up.
Very topical.
My friend Will, who was Higgins when I did My Fair Lady, is playing the Donald.
Oh, amazing.
There you go. Resume.
Good
Yeah.
on. Satire isn't my thing. This actually also was a news bit. I was going to talk to you about it. It came up maybe a week ago. Amanda Palmer was caught. She was just saying that not punk music. Is it punk music?
Yeah.
Punk in general, yeah.
Yeah, that there's going to be sort of a renaissance because of Trump in the coming years, because people are going to like go in their garages and like feel the anger and the frustration, and like good stuff will come out of it, and that's like kind of the bright shining light. It got misconstrued a little bit.
It did.
I think somewhat wrongfully so, but
She's an incredible woman, and everything she says tends to be a little bit of a hot
People
button,
think
I
that
think.
She's
Yeah.
like the coolest couple in general.
Oh
that,
God,
like,
Amanda
exists.
Palmer and Neil Gaiman. I cannot say this enough. And with all apologies to Wayne Duvall and Stu, Neil Gaiman, if you are listening, no, we're gonna stop. This is important. Neil Gaiman, you came to Heathers the musical, and I was told of it during our right after our opening number, and I nearly couldn't finish performing for you. And then you came back at intermission, and you signed my Kindle, and I have told every person since. So if you would like to come, I have. This is true. I have. He signed my Kindle. He pulled a Sharpie out of his trench coat. You guys, it was magic. Of course he did. And if you would like to come on and talk about theater or quite literally anything else.
Talk about being Neil Gaiman.
yeah.
Just for a second.
Also Amanda Palmer, who I will say, Amanda Palmer and the Dresden Dolls did a beautiful theatrical production up at the ART a few
Really?
years ago called The Onion Cellar, which was
I didn't know that.
exceptional. It had, it was a cabaret act. It had performers around the theater. It was set up as like a dinner thing. It was very strange. I don't know if that was pre-Diane Paulus years or right at the beginning, but I mean, it's such a cool couple. Yeah, they just make cool art, which I think is fascinating. And from time to time, she says things that I think
yeah.
people tend to feel strongly about in lots of directions.
So you're writing this other musical.
I'm writing this new musical, and it's about a young guy who runs a gift shop and accompanying haunted house. And he used to be in love with this girl, but she left town. She's now come back, and she's a campaign manager for a gubernatorial candidate. But he's been labeled a scaredy cat by one of the other candidates. And so he has to stay at this haunted house in order to prove his worth. But this other candidate is a real pain in the ass. And it's currently a woman, actually. She's this terrible, terrible human being. And she was not at all Trump related until Trump happened. And now it feels like there have to be parallels drawn. And I don't want to hit it on the head. That's not what the show is. It's not going to be a full satire. It's not about that. But to ignore the fact that there are these connective tissues now feels like a lost opportunity, both for me as a performer and for audiences to appreciate. Because we're all going through a catharsis. Well, not all of us, but
all of us.
a great deal of us are going through
Especially in this community.
Yes, yeah, a catharsis about what this means for us as individuals, what this means for us as a community. How do we proceed as artists, as people, as activists, as would-be activists? Yeah.
Art in the world of the president-elect is very interesting. And by the time you hear this, it's quite possible the inauguration will have happened. We're not quite sure on the timeline, so we're recording this pre-inauguration, and listeners, this may be a pre-inauguration thing we hear, or it may be post.
Yeah.
But one thing that is coming up soon, again, we're not entirely sure where, a wonderful woman named Emma Wagner had put together a piece of art after the election called Where Do We Go From Here? Which was a collection of monologues and sketches and shorts and scenes all about a world after the inauguration. It's some of it farcical, some of it funny, some of it really not so funny. Look at what we're dealing with. And we were asked to come in and record it for them, so we did. And we're very excited to bring that to you a little later this season.
It's a cool event. I like that we've jumped to special episodes very quickly on
Yeah.
this podcast. We've done 1.5 normal recordings. and
Technically, we've done 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, that's the right ratio.
Yeah, that's what you want.
And then we jump straight to special.
And then there'll be the Neil Gaiman interview, and that'll be a whole.
And
that'll
then
be a
we
6-part.
introduce Better Call Wayne, and then this podcast has derailed. But I think
No,
it's
then it's
derailed
over, right? Then we
in
all
a
go home.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. If you are interested in hearing a little bit more about our playwright Dustin Sullivan, you can go to his website, which is dustinsullivan.com. Yeah.
Dustin-Sullivan.
Dustin. What do you think? Where do you think the other one takes
The
you?
dash. Yeah, who is Dustin Sullivan without the dash?
You don't want to talk about him, do you?
I don't want to. I can't
Listeners,
remember.
go to
There's
Dustin
like a
Dash
lawyer
Sullivan
and
first.
like a wrestler or something.
A lawyer and a wrestler.
There's
What
an-
if those are you? What if,
Yeah.
what if
All
you're
in
not
good time.
lawyer, wrestler, actor, playwright?
There can
You
only be
can
one.
go to dustin-sullivan.com, find out a little bit more about his new musical about Dust and Shadow with Jonathan Rehgeld. You can find out some more about some of the folk and pop lyrics that you've done recently. And you've just finished your debut novel. Yeah?
Debut novel.
Fabulous. This is a fantasy novel?
It is a fantasy for young adult and up, I would say.
All right.
And it's I cannot believe it's something that's happened.
Congratulations.
As somebody who had a hard time writing, 5-6 page papers in college.
But so they can find out a little bit more about you on your website.
Yes.
Feel free to go there and check out some of his work. Also, his work as an actor. You can hear his line on Law & Order. Would you like to do your Law & Order line for us?
Here we go.
You passed it.
Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
That was brilliant.
Or, well, wait. Or go on YouTube and search for Valtrex.
That's right.
If you want to hear yours truly say the words genital herpes.
I was going to say that
On
sounded
national
like genital
television.
herpes.
And kids, if you move to New York, you too can get paid very handsomely for saying the words "I have genital herpes" while spinning a basketball on national television.
I used to laugh at those ads that are really, where they're sitting on a couch and someone says, I have genital herpes.
That
and
was
the next person
Dustin.
Says, that was you?
That
There was
was-
like a whole series of them, and then someone says, and I don't. And they say, and we want to keep it that way together. That seems like the single hardest acting gig I can imagine.
I don't know.
Can
He
I
got
can I
flown-
share can I share one little snippet?
Yes.
Please.
So I filmed this thing. My bit was there was like 10 of us in different places doing different things. Mine was just I'm sitting on bleachers holding a basketball. Fine, good. What didn't make it into the commercial was they wanted me to like play some basketball with a couple other people. A, I'm not very good at basketball. B, they hired 2 extras to play with me, except for they were like busy chilling, getting to know each other while I was filming my bit. So by the time I joined them to play, it really did sort of look like keep the ball away from herpes kid.
Wow. I think we need to end the interview there because I want the last thing that people to think about you to be, Dustin
the
Sullivan.
ball
Yeah,
away.
the herpes playwright.
The herpes kid.
Well,
No, I'm not
congratulations.
ashamed. Actually,
on
never
your,
ashamed.
You
That's
shouldn't
also
be.
the comic book that we're writing.
Herpes Kid?
The herpes kid.
Oh my God, that's your X-Men. There it is right there. Thank you so much
you
for
for
coming today
coming.
for this ridiculous
What a
discussion.
pleasure.
This episode of At the Table, a play reading series, is brought to you by graphic designer Haley Schipple, who designed our logo. It was edited and mixed by Marcus Thorne Bagala, recorded at Muselight Studios in Astoria, New York, music by Marcus Thorne Bagala, and as always, our hosts are Rachel Flynn and Ned Donovan. We'd like to thank our guest again, Dustin Sullivan, for coming in and talking to us. Coming up next on the program, we have Troop 54, a play by Justin Colombo. If you've ever been lost in the woods with 2 adults, 5 Boy Scouts, an infinite amount of coyotes, and 3 bags of marshmallows, Troop 54 might hit too close to home. Once described as, "What did I just watch?" Troop 54 is an ab workout and a theatrical experience not to be missed. We recorded it live at the Drama Bookshop earlier this month, who is also coincidentally sponsoring that episode, and we're very excited to share it with you guys. It'll be going up the first Monday of February. At the Table, a play reading series is produced by Charging Moose Media, telling great stories through new media. And as always, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the program. Every little bit helps towards going to produce more episodes and more seasons of the show for you guys. We'll catch you next time.